body and landing down the center.
Okay, we'll start with this. A very disgruntled Devin Haney posted this to his social media saying, "They say everything, but let's fight, Devin Haney." And after a war of words, in exchange with Gervonta Davis, who fights exclusively on Showtime, Devin stated to Stephan Espinoza, Showtime executive Stephan Espinoza, "Stephan, I have no problem taking Tank's Mickey Mouse belt in December." To which Stephan Espinoza replied, "I'd be happy to discuss it, but I understand you've signed a promotional agreement, which, as you know, means that all discussions must be handled by your promoter, and they have final say on who you fight. Have them give me a call. Best of luck." It is true that Devin Haney entered a promotional agreement with the people over there at Top Rank, and it is true that his very next two fights could be over there. That at this point in the juncture, Devin Haney is not at liberty to fight anyone else, at least not anyone over there on Showtime. Not right now, and not for the next two fights. Been talking about it here on the channel the last couple of weeks, that it seems to be Bob Arum's plan to match the winner of Haney versus Kambosos 2 against Vasyl Lomachenko, should Vasyl Lomachenko make it past Ortiz in his upcoming fall return. That's Bob's plan. That's what he wants to do. So that bit of it is true. What Stephan Espinoza said, that Devin Haney did sign a promotional agreement, and he's not at liberty to just make any fight anywhere at this time, at this point in the juncture, though that wasn't always the case. No, that wasn't always the case. There was, in fact, a window of opportunity there to do a fight between Gervonta and Devin. Devin, who says, "We both know that I have a co-promotional deal. My father has reached out to you numerous times with no response back. Knock it off, Stephan." Devin Haney's letting the cat out of the bag. So Bill Haney reached out to the people over there at Showtime on numerous occasions, and they couldn't be bothered to respond. Couldn't be bothered to pick up the phone to open up a dialogue to see about doing a fight between Gervonta and Devin. I can't say that I'm the least bit surprised to hear it. We're hearing it from the horse's mouth. We're hearing it from Devin Haney himself. Stephan Espinoza responded by saying, "I don't know anything about your deal. Whoever is legally authorized to handle your deals can reach out to me. I don't negotiate deals on Twitter, and neither should you, unless you're just doing it for clout." To which Devin Haney responded, "Stop being lame, Stephan. I just said my dad has reached out to you numerous times, and you know it's the truth. Clout? Get the fuck out of here. It sounds like you want the clout being a network executive getting in fighter versus fighter business." You know, I've often pointed out here on the channel over the years that Stephan Espinoza is acting less and less like a network executive and more like a boxing promoter. So it's neither here nor there. What is true is that Devin is not at liberty at this time to take on Gervonta Davis on the Showtime side of things. He just isn't. His next fight and the one after that, it may have to happen on ESPN per the agreement he signed in order to get George Kambosos Jr. in the ring. And he is still fulfilling that agreement. He's still honoring it. So he's not at liberty right now to fight Gervonta Davis. But I'll tell you something. There was a time when he was. There was a time when Devin was at liberty to go right over there to Showtime and take on Gervonta. I'll tell you when that was. Immediately after the Jojo Diaz fight in December of last year, Devin Haney was both a network and promotional free agent with no commitments to anyone. This was long before Devin Haney entered into an agreement with the people over there at Top Rank in order to get the opportunity to fight for Undisputed at lightweight in spring of this year. This was way before that. So you guys out there, what you guys got is short memories. So let me jog them for you. George Kambosos beat Teofimo Lopez for 3 of the 4 alphabet titles at this weight in November of last year. And at this time, Gervonta Davis was already in possession of a WBA regular title that he still holds today. He was already in possession of that WBA regular title, which he could have used to force George Kambosos Jr. to fight him. But Gervonta Davis made no effort to get George in the ring.
He didn't make him an offer. He didn't send him a contract. He didn't do anything.
George was a network free agent, you understand. He wasn't tied to DAZN, wasn't tied to ESPN. He wasn't tied to anyone or any particular platform. So if Gervonta Davis wanted to get him in the ring, he had the opportunity to do so, but he didn't.
And the same applied to Devin Haney after the JoJo Diaz fight the following month in December.
The JoJo Diaz fight was Devin Haney's final fight on the DAZN platform under the Matchroom banner. Moving forward, he also was a network and promotional free agent. If Gervonta Davis wanted to get that guy in the ring, he would have called him, offered him something. But according to Devin, they made no effort to do that. All the effort was coming from their side of things. Bill, who attempted to get in contact with Stephen Espinoza to open up a dialogue to do a fight, but received no response, no answer. The window of opportunity was there for Gervonta to get either George or Devin in the ring.
So negotiations between Devin and George started, and those negotiations didn't go well.
Matchroom was attempting to negotiate a fight between George, Lou DiBella, his promoter, on the DAZN side of things, but that didn't happen. And at this time, Devin Haney was a network and promotional free agent, but he was still working with Matchroom to some extent. In that fight, it didn't materialize, not at first. Lou DiBella and George Kambosos started talks with the people over there at Top Rank to afford Vasyl Lomachenko the opportunity to fight for George's newly obtained belts.
Now at this time, because Loma and George were already in talks, if Gervonta wanted to get Devin in the ring, he could have, because Devin was free. He had no other commitments.
Talk of the town was that it was going to end up being George Kambosos versus Vasyl Lomachenko in the Land Down Under in Australia. But around March, Russia invaded the Ukraine. Vasyl Lomachenko, he made a decision to withdraw from the George Kambosos Jr. fight and head back to his home country, at which point Devin Haney took that as an opportunity to take on George himself. Since nobody else offered him anything, he was willing to accept whatever the terms were, whatever Vasyl Lomachenko agreed to, he was willing to agree to it so he could get George in the ring for the chance to fight for undisputed. In between late last year and March of this year,
if Gervonta Davis wanted to get either George Kambosos or Devin Haney in the ring, he had the chance. He could have.
But he would rather fight guys like Isaac Cruz and Rolly Romero instead of fighting his contemporaries, the good fighters, the really good fighters, at or around these weights.
Why, you ask?
Because they're really not a threat to him. At least they don't perceive those fighters as being a threat to him. And they're more cost feasible. It's more cost effective. You can pay those guys peanuts on a dollar to get them in the ring, but peanuts on a dollar won't get you a Devin Haney. Wasn't going to get you a George Kambosos Jr. either. And this is why I tell you guys all the time, Gervonta Davis ain't nowhere near as big a draw as he's made out to be, because if he were,
you would have been able to offer Devin or George something substantial to get them in the ring, but you didn't even try.
These ain't the kind of guys you can just throw them a couple $100,000 to get them in the ring. You've got to give them something substantial, and you don't want to do that because you're not a big enough draw to justify the spending.
George Kambosos made $10 million from that Devin Haney fight, and Devin Haney made close to $3 million.
You can't pay these guys what you're paying Rolly Romero and Isaac Cruz, and you know that.
You're only a cash cow in the land of make-believe.
In men's super middleweight news, ahead of his trilogy with Gennady Golovkin, Canelo says, "I still feel I'm the best. Name a fighter who takes risks like me. Nobody."
Most wouldn't describe facing today's Gennady Golovkin as all that big a risk for Canelo.
But I'm pretty sure those aren't the risks he's talking about. Canelo's critics and their favorite fighters, have they had as many visits to the light heavyweight division as Canelo has? For champions.
And in a general sense, are they fighting as many champions as often as Canelo?
Canelo Alvarez, he says, "I feel good. I'm in a position where I don't need to take risks, but I like challenges. That's why I picked Bivol, because I like challenges, and I lost. That's it. When I win, I cheer and everything. When I lose, I keep moving forward, keep focus. But still, I feel I'm still the best. Name a fighter who takes that kind of risk in that position. Nobody. So I feel I'm the best."
And this is the part where we mull over the criticisms levied against Canelo Alvarez.
Mull over who his critics are, what they're saying, and who it is they're propping up, as well as comparing who it is they're propping up to Canelo, a retrospect to see who's doing what and who really deserves criticism. I mean, we've been all through that many times here on this channel, and what stands out is that Canelo Alvarez is right.
He is.
A guy in Canelo Alvarez's position doesn't have to go to light heavyweight.
That was a risk, and I told you guys that was a risk ahead of the Bivol fight, that the Bivol fight is a potential banana skin, and it's more challenging than a Jermall Charlo, than a Demetrius Andrade, and even more challenging than a David Benavidez. But a guy who makes as much money as Canelo, he doesn't actually have to take on those risks. He doesn't actually have to take on as many champions as he does. He can fight once and make more in that one fight than these guys do.
Make more in just one fight than the totality of what these guys make throughout the year all together. And yet he chooses to stay active. He chooses to be more active than his contemporaries, fighting more champions than his contemporaries. In that respect...
And listen, don't give me the dog and pony show about Gennady Golovkin.
About how much time has passed and how he's so old, when Canelo Alvarez's critics would be happy to see that same Gennady Golovkin share the ring with Jermall Charlo, share the ring with Demetrius Andrade, share the ring with David Benavidez. If it were anyone other than Canelo Alvarez...
Don't bullshit me.
You can't bullshit me. Not when you've spent the last 2 years or so talking up Sergey Didivianchenko as a big win for Jermall Charlo, so I can only imagine what you'd say if it were Gennady Golovkin you were fighting.
Bear in mind, the Sergey Didivianchenko that Jermall Charlo fought was coming off a loss, a 12-round war where he got knocked down.
Knocked down by Gennady Golovkin, and a year of inactivity, as there is a year between the Golovkin fight and the Charlo fight. Enough of Jermall Charlo's fans.
They literally tried to talk that up as some kind of big win.
So just imagine what they'd say if Jermall Charlo were lucky enough to share the ring with a Gennady Golovkin. Suddenly, he wouldn't be old, and suddenly, fighting him would mean a lot more than they're making it out to be when it comes to Canelo. When Canelo fights the guy, they poo-poo all over the fight, but if it were Jermall fighting him, he wouldn't be old.
Remember, these are the same people that were celebrating Errol Spence Jr. potentially facing Manny Pacquiao, who was in his 40s and hadn't fought in 2 years.
Remember when that fight was announced? Do you remember how happy the PBC shills were that Errol Spence Jr. was going to fight a 40-year-old Manny Pacquiao that hadn't fought in 2 years?
That Manny Pacquiao then was older than Gennady Golovkin is now, and less active.
So don't fucking bullshit me. And don't give me the song and dance about how Gennady Golovkin's so fucking old. Yeah, he's old, but you wouldn't care about his age if it were Jermall were fighting, so spare me the double standard.
These mental gymnastics are worthy of a gold medal.
The standing ovation. They prop up these fighters like Jermall Charlo, who hasn't fought at all this year. He's nowhere near as accomplished as Canelo Alvarez, and nowhere near as active. And these are the guys they like to prop up. Inactive fighters like Jermall Charlo. You think about Demetrius Andrade. Nothing against him. He very recently was ordered to fight Yanni Bekalim Kanuli. And look at how sensitive an issue that became.
They ordered him to fight Alim Kanuli. He says, I'm going up to super middleweight.
He doesn't actually go up to super middleweight. He reportedly suffers an injury, of which I know of no surgery that he had for it. Better still, he doesn't actually go through with the fight. The order comes down for him to face Alim Kanuli again, and once again he says he's going up to super middleweight.
And this goes on for months without a contest. This goes on for months without a fight. All the while,
Canelo Alvarez is up there at 175 pounds, taking on an unbeaten fighter, an unbeaten champion in his prime, who so clearly has a size advantage.
while Demetrius Andrade treats the Yanni Bekalim Kanuli fight like that guy's the Black Plague.
Such a big fucking deal. Such a sensitive fucking issue that you might have had to face Yanni Bekalim Kanuli at middleweight, while Canelo, who's a smaller guy than you are, is all the way up there at light heavyweight. You want to give that guy shtick.
No worse, you're expecting me to give him shtick. Meanwhile, the two guys you're propping up, neither one of them has fought this year.
Neither Jermall Charlo or Demetrius Andrade. And these are the fucking guys you're high on.
Must be fucking stupid or something.
You think I'm trying to convince you that Canelo Alvarez is perfect? Let me tell you something, sweetheart. Nobody's perfect. But before I criticize him, before I criticize Canelo, who's more active and more ambitious,
Before I criticize him, I'm gonna criticize the schmucks that ain't doing as much.
I'm not gonna criticize him for fighting Gennady Golovkin for a third time when I know you guys wish either one of those two guys gave a fuck about your fight. But they don't. The real big fish in boxing are doing big fish things. and you can't do a goddamn thing about it.
You can't do nothing.
Kind of fucking bozos prop up two fighters that have been as inactive as these guys have been all this year.
What are you, stupid or something?
So maybe you think Gennady Golovkin, at least at this point, given his age and how much time has passed, maybe you think he's a lighter touch for Canelo Alvarez. And you know what?
What?
I'll be your Huckleberry. I'll play devil's advocate. Maybe he is. But who's earned a lighter touch more than Canelo Alvarez? Who? The two guys that haven't even fought this year?
Canelo Alvarez was more active than the both of them last year, and he's still more active than the both of them this year. They haven't even fought this year.
David Benavidez has, but who'd he fight against? David Lemieux? The faded husk of what used to be David Lemieux. Pardon me while I fall over my chair with excitement.
Stop promoting underachievers just because you identify with them. The rest of the world, they don't care.
I don't care. I don't care if you went to school with these guys or lived down the street from them.
That's between you and them and God, my friend.
That is no concern of mine, and I'll tell you something. Canelo Alvarez, when he lost that Dimitri Bivol fight, per the rules that govern the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, he was ejected. He's currently not ranked, not right now. But if he successfully defends his alphabet titles in the super middleweight division, oh yeah. He's back in there like swimwear. Because all he's got to do is get himself back in the winner's bracket. The argument for Canelo to be ranked as a pound-for-pound fighter, it's already there. He's already been a champion at 4 weights, beaten what? 8?
Look, he's beaten a lot of fucking champions, okay? More than Jermall Charlo has, more than Demetrius Andrade.
More than David Benavidez has. You want to give this guy shtick because he went up there and lost to a naturally bigger fighter at light heavyweight? Well, refresh my memory. Did Jermall Charlo go up there and beat somebody? Did Demetrius? Did David?
Huh?
Answer the fucking question.
Huh?
Answer the fucking question.
What the fuck have those guys been doing?
If Canelo Alvarez on September 17th successfully defends the undisputed crown in the super middleweight division, he will be so reintegrated into the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list. And given his career accolades, what he's done already, the number of champions he's taken belts from, and the number of weight classes he's campaigned, he'll be right back at the top. And you don't have to like it. You don't have to abide by it. But the logic has to stick.
Because I don't give two fucking shits about your eye test, my friend.
I don't know who the fuck you guys think you are with these anecdotes, but anecdotes are no substitute for actual fights and actual facts.
If the guys you like so fucking much were as deserving as this guy, their resumes would look like his, but they don't, do they?
Spare me the monotonous arguments and regurgitated talking points. Simply make your own list and see who gives a shit.
Because I fucking don't.
And you know what? If by some chance Gennady Golovkin pulls off a miracle and he actually beats Canelo Alvarez this time, obviously Canelo won't get on the list, but Gennady will.
Because either one of these two guys have a stronger argument to be ranked on that list than the chumps you like to prop up.
If you don't like it, fly a kite.
Or kick a rock. Barefoot.
You fucking bozo.